big round of applause for me. He's going to launch it for us is Joe Mahon of Lesser Spotted Ulster. Good man, Joe.
Thanks, Ardara. Thank you very much for the warm welcome. I suppose amongst so many distinguished Donegal people, I really feel the need to put my own Donegal credentials on display here first of all, because I'm only half a Derry man, the other half of me is prime Donegal. And I started off this programme about maybe 15 years ago, believe it or not. It's one of the longest running programmes. It's taken me 15 years to go from the north coast of Donegal right down to Ardara. But I remember the very first Donegal programme we did was in Mahon on the Inishowen Peninsula. And one of the men that I talked to was an old man called John Henderson. He's long passed away since. John was an old man in his 80s. And when I encountered him, he was herding goats along a wee road outside a row of cottages, and one of which he actually lived himself. And helping him to herd these goats was a goose that thought it was a sheepdog, which just would have been a goat dog. But when I approached, I was actually looking for the weather station on Mahon Head, and I approached John and I said, "Excuse me, could you tell me please where this road that goes past your house leads to?" He said, "Australia." So I thought he was definitely taking my hand, and I said, "How do you make that out?" He said, "Well, my brother went to Australia 40 years ago, and that's the road he went down." Perfect logic when you think about it. And really what he meant was that no matter where you start from home, and that's the road to where you're ever going. So here I am in Ardara 15 years after making that start to that journey. And I said I would put my Donegal credentials out on display. This is probably a bit of ancestral name dropping that I'm going to be involved in here, so you'll bear with me if there's a certain swagger in my voice by the time I finish this. My maternal grandmother was called McClune, and she came from Claudy, as I thought originally. Claudy is a wee village in County Derry, as most of you will have heard of. Her father was one of three brothers. All called McClune. Three brothers, Paddy, Peter and John, who originally, at the turn of the century, and I don't mean the turn of the last century, I mean the turn of the 19th, 20th century, if you like, in the 1890s, three brothers from Glenties and Donegal. And one of those, two of those brothers, I should say, were hired out as teenagers, hired out to work in farms as teenagers. One of them went to Claudy, one of them went to Killay, just into the border from Derry. And they went to good families because they stayed there. They never came back. They got married to local girls, settled down and had families of their own. And the brother that stayed here actually got the wee farm that was left in Glenties. So my great-grandfather, McClune, was the one who ended up in Claudy. Another one, Peter, ended up in Killay in County Donegal. And the one that stayed behind was actually Brian Friel's grandfather. So there you are. Brian Friel is going to sue if he hears this, okay? So I'm actually distantly related, but very proud to be related to people originally from Glenties. There you go. Now, I think there's somebody else from Glenties here as well, isn't there? Right, you should definitely shout about it. I'm very privileged and delighted to be asked along here tonight to participate in this. We did a programme from here last year, and Nancy's Bar was one of the features that we did in that. And it was Charles' late sister, Nancy herself, who told me part of the story that featured in that programme. I only learned tonight the sad news that she had since passed away. But she told me a story as we sat out in the main bar, and it concerned the cottage in Glenlock, away over above Mahon over there, and near Glencolmkill, a tiny isolated cow byre that was converted back in 1936 by an American artist called Rockwell Kent, that you may well have heard of. And he lived in that converted byre, as he called it himself, for an idyllic summer in 1926. And actually painted quite a lot around this coastline. And some of his paintings featured in the programme. Beautiful paintings they actually were. But there's a whole story of Rockwell Kent's life, which I can't go into here. But the story that Nancy told me outside was that 9 years later, in 1935, Dylan Thomas, whom you've probably heard of, was getting tired of the flesh pots of London, or actually more accurately, the flesh pots of London were getting tired of Dylan Thomas. And his friends persuaded him that he could find no more isolated spot, and no more less tempting spot, than a wee cow byre in the middle of the Donegal Mountains, where nobody could come near him. So he lived out in this cow byre, converted artist studio, 2 miles from the nearest road. But the lifestyle didn't do his temper any good, because there were no pubs nearby. It rained fairly incessantly, and there was absolutely nothing at all to tempt him away from writing and to give him any kind of temptation towards the drink. As I say, it didn't do his temper any good, because the story that Nancy told me was that there was a postman called Gallagher, and that's only because nearly all postmen in Donegal are called Gallagher for some reason, who fell out with them, a bit of a row. And the postman could only get to this cow byre by leaving the main road and traipsing 2 miles across Mountain Bog to get there. It's a rough. So Dylan Thomas was not only a very inventive and creative writer, he was a very inventive and creative nasty person, because what he did to get revenge on the postman was he ordered a daily newspaper to be brought from Dublin, and the poor postman had to walk across the bog to deliver it. Now after about 9 months there, I think he went back to London, much to the relief, I'm sure, of the postman. Anyway, I just remember that tale being told down here. I also remember many's another tale to do with, I think, a man who used to frequent this place in the past, and it was John D. Sheridan, I think he said.
John D. Stewart.
John D. Stewart. And there were many a story that we exchanged about the same man here. What he found enormously attractive about the place, about Ardara, as did we all in the film crew, was the sense of hospitality, was the warmth of the welcome, and was the strength of the warmth of the people as well. Here was a place, I think, we made one of the best programmes we ever made in and around Ardara. This is a very small gesture on my part to come down here today to be happy to participate in this launch of this, what I'm quite sure will be a very successful venture. Everything is going for you. You have wonderful pubs, you have great musicians, you have great food, you have the most astounding scenery in the world that cannot fail. So I just wish, on behalf of everybody associated with our programme, with West Bay Films, with UTV, to say formally that this whole plan is launched. It's a wonderful plan. It's going to work wonderfully well, and it requires all you to do is to simply support it and wish it well yourselves and spread it far and wide. So I'm delighted to say, Enda and all the others associated with it, you're on your way. Thank you.